3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. What's up, Speedy's Garage gang? Welcome back to the Speedy's Garage YouTube channel. There's a bunch of stuff going on, or that happened in 2024. There's been a bunch of videos about that. I just want to mention it. If you're not aware, Carlos Tavares has been fired from Stellantis. I'm hoping that means some really positive changes start to take place. And the same week that that happened, Tim Kuniskis was hired back. Tim, if you're watching, thanks again for helping me get the Demon. I wish you the best of success at Ram. He is now back over as CEO in charge of Ram. We're going to see what he's able to do with that. And with his ideas, I'm hoping some of those spread over into the vehicle car side of the business. So we saw all of that happen. The EV Charger Daytona is just now starting to hit the reviews, and they've been just like I think pretty much all of us thought they would be. I'm going to sit back and watch and wait and see what happens there. And it's hard to believe, but Otis here is a year old. I can't believe it's his birthday, literally, and a year has already gone by. It has gone by so fast. I had such a fantastic time over the past year driving and enjoying the car, going to cruise-ins and car shows, and went to the drag strip a few times. Just really have been enjoying it, and I can't believe a year has already gone by. Happy birthday, Otis. And oh, by the way, I did finally decide on a name. Otis just kind of came to me one night when I was watching Andy Griffith, and it seemed perfect since he loves to drink alcohol. And Otis here has been covered up. We have had some pretty bad, nasty weather the past couple of weeks, so I haven't gotten an opportunity to drive him very much. Starting to have some withdrawal, but I did go ahead and put my Noco Genius 5 charger on the car. These things work great. I'll leave a link in the description if you need one. It actually helped me save a lithium-ion battery one time, and it automatically keeps the battery topped up, and it's well priced. So again, link in the description if you need something like that. I'm also starting to clear out the garage of spare parts. So I've got a spare TI 285 pump, if you can use it, some Demon 700cc or Red Eye 700cc fuel injectors, a Lightens Hellraiser 2.72 pulley. It includes a new end cap and an install tool, a factory Hellcat fuel pump module, and finally, my Weld 17 by 10 wheels with pretty much brand new Mickey Thompson ET-R or ET Street R 305 4517 tires. These are pretty new. I think they got maybe 8 passes on them. These do not fit the Demon, so I'm selling these. I probably don't want to ship them, so you'll have to meet with me somewhere to pick these up if you're interested. Keep an eye on the Speedy's Garage Facebook page for prices, or shoot me an email, speedy@speedysgarage.net. If you can use any of this stuff, I'll make you a good deal. But today's video is about investment versus enjoyment. So I've had several people email me. They're like, holy crap, Speedy, you're actually going to drive your 170? Well, yeah. To me, I would rather drive it and enjoy it rather than try to package it away as an investment. And there are a ton of Demons for sale right now, and I'm going to go through some of these and kind of show them to you. And if you're interested in one, now might be a fantastic time to buy one. And I sort of said this back in 2018 when the original Demon came out. A lot of people were paying over sticker for them, bubble wrapping them and putting them away. A good friend of mine actually did that. And I even tried to help him sell it a couple of years later. And people would say it wasn't in the right venue or we didn't get it in front of the right people, but we advertised it. I did a video about it. We tried to put it everywhere. And he ended up, I think, selling it back to the dealer he bought it from, just so he could get out from underneath it. And then I think he bought it in 2018 and he sold it back to them in 2020. If you look at the Mecum auction that's going on right now, and you want to pay attention on Friday, which I think is January the 17th, if you're interested in one of these, a lot of the 2018 Demons, I think there are, let me see, there's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, if I'm counting correctly. So let's call it 20 original 2018 Demons for sale, and most of them are delivery miles is what I would call it. So there's 2018, I think this is a Go Man Go in color, 252 miles. Gray one, Destroyer Gray, I would say 15 miles. B5 Blue, they don't list the mile. Oh, 18 miles. Granite, 19 miles. Billet, 47 miles. So practically brand new, and they're all on no reserve. And so that means what they bid to is what they're going to sell for. And most of these are going to be auctioned on Friday, which is the 17th of January. So if you're in the market for one of these and you've been wanting one, for whatever reason, now it seems like the time to get one. There have been a few that have already sold, and I'll show you some of these so you can kind of look at it with me. But if we look, now I'm focused on the 2018 Demon first. We'll talk about the 2023 170s here in a second. But here is one with less than 2,000 miles. It sold for 110. A indigo blue, which I think is a beautiful color. 10 miles on it. It went pretty high. It was 151.8. Someone must have really liked that color, because the rest of them, and I watched some of these go across the auction block. Black one, 126.5. Let's see, this is a red, 6 miles. Wow, 126.5. A white one, 132, 124.3, 140 for a purple one. So maybe there were some people that really had to have a certain color because the indigo and the purple were the kind of the high end. The average seems to be like they're going for about 100, let's call it 125,000, give or take. So right in that range. Now keep in mind, there is a 10%, I believe Mecum gets, well, it depends. If it's a no reserve car, which means what it auctions for is what it sells for, then there's a 6% fee to the buyer, I believe, and then there's a consignment fee to the seller, and the consignment fee varies, but Mecum really wants you to do no reserve. They give you a 50% discount, if I read correctly, on their FAQ if you do no reserve, and if you do no reserve, the fee to the buyer is only 6%. If you do a reserve, then you pay 100% on the consignment, which is what Mecum gets, plus 10% to the seller for buying the car. So they really push people, and I can understand that. You want the auction to be an auction, not a reserve where unless it gets met. And I was watching some of these 2018 Demons go across the block, and they would get to a point where they would stall like around 110, and the seller is usually there on site, like at the stage when the cars are going across. That's kind of what they asked them to do. And they would start negotiating with the bidder like real time. Like, hey, if you'll give me 120, I'll take the reserve off, for example. And usually the buyer would say, yep, I'll go ahead and do that. So let's call the average 125, just to be fair. So for a 2018 Demon with no miles, delivery miles on it, brand new, been stored, 125,000. And people ask about, we kind of go back and forth about, are these investments or are they not? I'm of the opinion that the Dodge cars, pick your model or your flavor or whatever, Demon 170. I just don't think, at least in my lifetime, they're going to really be an investment type vehicle. And the reason I say that is the stock market is my benchmark. So unless it can beat stock market pricing or what I could make putting my money in the stock market, I don't consider it an investment. And you have to also consider, you've got storage that you would have to deal with. So let's say, I actually had the opportunity and I spec'd out a 2018 Go Mango Demon, and we auctioned it at Challenger Fest back in 2018. And I thought easily that car was going to bring 120,000, and we auctioned it for a charity. So the money would have gone to the charity, and the bidder or the buyer would have been able to get a tax deduction based on that. We could only get the bids, and we did online bidding. We did the whole thing professionally. We had bank verification and the whole 9 yards. We could only get the car up to 106,000, and that's what it sold for, was 106, which I thought was a really good price considering at the time a lot of these were going for 150, 160, 170 at these types of Mecum type Barrett Jackson auctions. When it only went for 106, that sort of stuck in my mind, and I thought, that's kind of interesting. For the most part, the stock market has increased over time. So my benchmark is always the market itself. And if I figure if you were able to get one of these cars for sticker price, and let's say you bought it for 100 grand, which is probably about what they went for. I think the one that I spec'd was like 94,000, if I remember correctly. It had a seat delete. It had leather and a stereo because I thought you might want to take a buddy out and ride around with you. It was Go Mango in color. Beautiful car. I'll put a picture of it in here. And we actually had the car on site. So if a person at the auction bid and won the car, they could haul it away or drive it away or do whatever they wanted right then and there. And I was really surprised it only went for 106. So now let's assume you took that 100,000 and you put it in the stock market back in 2018 when these cars were coming out. That money would be worth over $200,000 now, like 240, let's call it 240K. So you've more than doubled your money. Now let's account for inflation and all of that. You're at like 200. So you've still doubled your money in what, 7 years, give or take? If you bought one of these cars and you paid sticker price for it and were actually able to get it for 100K and you put it in storage and it had to be, you know, climate controlled and all that to keep the rubber and everything where it didn't go bad. And then you had to deal with the maintenance on the car because it still requires maintenance, even though it's in storage. You don't want it to sit and flat spot the tire. So you have to turn those over or store it in a way where the tires won't flat spot. Keep it out of the sun, temperature controlled like I mentioned. Your coolant, your oil, your brake fluid, all of that will still age. So you have to kind of keep up with that maintenance. And I think, in my opinion, it's worse if you don't drive the car because those fluids sit stagnant. And somebody will say, well, I'll just fire it up once a month and let it idle for a few minutes and then shut it back off. That's probably worse if you don't drive the car enough to get it up to operating temperature. And that means coolant temp of about 203, 204 degrees, somewhere around there. Get the oil temp up to 180, 190 and burn off any moisture or condensation that happens to accumulate on those fluids and drive the car around and get the brake fluid moving through the system. I think just starting up, letting it idle for 15 or 20 minutes and shutting it back off is probably worse. Keep up with the gasoline in it, know when to replace that or treat it. So those are kind of minor costs, the storage and the maintenance on it. Now you've got insurance. So if you bought the car as an investment, you're going to assume, let's say you paid 100 grand for it, you're hoping to double your money, I would think, or at least 50% more. So let's say you insure it for between $150,000, and $200,000. You've got to insure that for $150,000 or $200,000. Even if you don't drive it, you still got to keep it insured, whether there's a tornado or a fire or who knows what. So that's probably $15,000 to $18,000, maybe $2,000 a month in insurance. Well, now that's, gosh, I mean, not a month, a year in insurance. So $1,500, $1,800, $2,000 a year in insurance. Multiply that over 7 years. Let's use 2,000 as an easy number. You're not $14,000. So now that comes off your profit, plus your maintenance, plus your storage. Then you've got to get it to the auction. Then you pay the consignment fee. So it starts eating into all of that. So all of these cars that sold, and inflation, oh, by the way, almost forgot that one. So normal inflation would have been between 2% and 3%, not terrible, but you're still talking about over 7 years, 2.5% times 7, you know, so you're, what's that, 14 plus another half, 17%. So add that to your $100,000. So now you're at 117 plus your insurance and your storage and your maintenance. You can see what you're going to have to get for that car to actually make some money. And I think that's pretty hard to do with a car like this. Now there'll be one-off cars, like you'll get your Ford GT, which shot way up. You'll get your Ferrari that was a one of one, custom painted, and you know, all of that. And those will become collectors because they're super, super rare. In my opinion, a 3,300 unit vehicle isn't really rare enough to be an investment. That's just my opinion. Don't get mad at me, but I think we're seeing that now because you had so many people buy these cars in 2018 and package them away. I mean, I just counted, at least 18 or 20 of these, and they're all delivery miles basically, and they're now selling for around, let's say, 125. So by the time you add up all of the maintenance cost, storage, insurance, and inflation, they haven't made money on these cars. So bottom line, if you want one, now's a great time to get it, because if you've been factoring inflation and all that stuff, you're probably getting it for less than sticker price or MSRP, considering everything else, if you pay $125 for it and you want a Demon. Now, it's still a lot of money for a car, don't get me wrong. Now let's talk about the 170s. So there have been a couple that have sold. One bid to 140 and it didn't meet the reserve. The rest look like they're going for, let's see, black one 165, a Gomango 162 250, 24 miles, 23 miles on the black one, 25 miles on a white one that went for 165. Here's a green one went for 159.5. All of them with delivery miles. In my opinion, 165 plus the 10%. Now you got to remember, you're still talking about 10% for the auction fee to the buyer. That's $16,500 just for the opportunity to buy it. That's pretty steep for me, but if you gotta have one, I don't know. Based on what I was seeing on some other auction sites, the 165 numbers look a little high to me. I'm thinking mid 140s is probably where they're at as of right now, this video. But again, consider if you're gonna buy this car as an investment and store it away, all the other things I've already mentioned, and then consider if you took the 165 and put it in the market, and you put it in the stock market, you're doubling your money probably in 7 years, assuming like about a 10%, give or take return rate, which is pretty average. I would heavily consider that. Take all the investment discussion out and talk about just buying it and enjoying it. And that's kind of the way I look at it. You can't put a price on memories. When I'm old and too old to enjoy these cars anymore, and I hate to say it, but that time will eventually come for all of us, I will be able to sit wherever I'm at and remember back to the good times I had in this car, and I don't feel like I can put a price on that. So I'm not really worried about driving it and depreciating it. Now, I don't drive it every day. If you're looking for a daily driver, a Demon or a Demon 170 probably isn't the right car for that. I mean, I wouldn't want to go put 50,000 miles a year on one, but a couple thousand miles a year, I don't think it's going to hit the values that hard anyway. So if in 20 years I decide I want to sell it, it's got some miles on it, I think they're probably still going to do okay. Now in 20 years, in the wrapper car, will definitely bring more. How much more? Who knows? We'll have to kind of wait and see. And let's go back to that Ford GT. And I'm not talking about a Mustang. I'm talking about the actual Ford GT. They had a MSRP of right around $140,000 back in 2008. I'm not talking about the more recent one, but I think the same will probably apply. In 2008, if you took that $140,000 and you put it in the market like the S&P 500, you can punch this into some investment calculators, but you're looking at around $700,000 today. And I just looked, and a used Ford GT today with very, very, very low miles, their average value is around $500,000. So you're still better off if you're just looking strictly from an investment perspective with the market versus a car. Now, if you're driving it, enjoying it, again, all bets are off. But if you're just storing it as an investment, the market seems to run away from some of these car values. Now back to like a regular car, Ford GT can get a little bit specific, more like some of the rare Ferraris and Porsches and, Koenigsegg's and all those types of things. But if we're talking about like what I would consider a normal muscle car, like Dodge Demon, something like that, the reason I think these cars won't take off in value is because they're not as rare as we think they are. 3300 sounds rare when you're talking about millions of Hellcats and Red Eyes and other models and Chargers and Challengers, RTs and SRTs and Scat Packs and all that. But 3300 in the grand scheme of things isn't really all that rare. And when you have so many people like we're seeing with the 2018s that put them away and kept them basically wrapper fresh with delivery miles on them, now they come out of the woodwork like this, it waters down the market. So there's a bunch available. When I was watching the Mecum auction the other day, they were just putting them through one right after the other. I mean, I watched like 5 go by, just bang, 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 bang. And so when the person that's interested in the car is bidding and they're thinking, I got to 110 or whatever, 120, I'm gonna stop because I know there's 4 more coming. There's no reason to get the price up. Now, if there's only one available at the whole auction, that's a whole different ballgame, but that's not what we're seeing. It gets back to, supply and demand. So think about those 3,300 cars and 70% of them are bubble wrapped, or even more, 80% of them are bubble wrapped away. Now think about the 1970 Hemi Cuda, for example, or one of those types of cars. The reason they're worth so much is because there's so few of them around anymore. People bought those cars and drove them. There's very few, if anybody, that bought them and kept them as an investment and packaged them away somewhere. Now, somebody might have really loved the cars and had the money to have like a mock dealership maybe at their property where you walk in and it looks like a dealership with some cars and they kept them all brand new, but those are gonna be really, really rare. And that's why those cars are worth so much, because most people bought those cars and they drove them. I mean, they were a daily driver for everybody pretty much that bought them. And there were very few people that bubble wrapped them and put them away. They drove them like daily drivers, and they got wrapped around telephone poles. They got to be old used cars and parked in a field somewhere. They ended up on used car lots and went through a dozen owners and didn't get taken care of and got beat down. And so there's only a few left. They're in really, really good shape. And with these cars, the 2018 Demon is kind of showing, and I had these debates with people back in 2018 that I thought this would happen, that we would have all these bubble wrap Demons come out of the woodwork, and that's what we're seeing happen. I think it's gonna be even worse with the Demon 170 because so many people bought those cars and they paid a lot for them to put them away, thinking it would be an investment down the road. Leave me some comments. Do I got it completely wrong? Give me some examples if you know of some where, hey, this car that we didn't think was gonna be some kind of collector item ended up being one. If I got it wrong, leave me a comment and let me know. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Please give it a thumbs up if you did. Be sure to check us out on Instagram. It's at Speedies_garage, as well as the website, www.speediesgarage.net. And hopefully, I'll see you out there.